I'm Amy Goodman. You're watching GVTV News.
Thanks, Amy, and I'm Randy Hansen. In today's world news headlines, Edward Snowden is in there again. NSA leaks motivated by litany of lies from U.S. officials, he says. And Obama claims domestic spy programs are transparent. And China demands explanation for U.S. internet surveillance. And Apple admits receiving thousands of requests for user data. And Russia says and U.S. remain at odds on Syria after talks at G8. And Obama announces talks for massive free trade deal with Europe. And protests against U.S. foreign policy and austerity continues at G8 summit. And out of Brazil, hundreds of thousands take to the streets in historic protests. And out of Turkey, scores arrested in raids targeting protesters. And Afghan forces assume leadership role amid continued U.S. presence. And a report says Afghan child casualties spike under U.S.-led occupation. And U.S. Yemeni demonstrators rally against Guantanamo in Sana'a. And Supreme Court strikes down Arizona law requiring citizenship proof to vote. An Indiana woman sentenced to death at 16 is released from prison after 30 years. And a report of law enforcement mining state photo ID databases. They used them to identify people. And U.S. House to vote on 20-week abortion ban. And civilian court hears argument on secrecy of Bradley Manning trial. And 7-Eleven store owners accused of subjecting immigrants to modern-day slavery. An ICE director who oversaw records deportations resigns to take post in financial sector. GVTV News is broadcast on Grass Valley Television, division of Rural Counties Television Network, whose focus is on community involvement. We also air on NCTV. But before these stories, GVTV News would like to thank one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us. GVTV News. In today's first world news story, just more than a week after publicly admitting he was the source from who revealed the National Security Agency's sweeping domestic spy program, whistleblower Edward Snowden defended his actions in an online chat. Speaking to Guardian readers and journalists, Snowden indicated he remains in Hong Kong after arriving there last month, but did not confirm his exact location. He stood by his assertion that as an NSA contractor, that he had the capability to wiretap anyone in the United States with a personal email address. At one point, Snowden was asked when exactly he made the decision to come forward. He said, "For me, there was no single moment. It was seen a continuing litany of lies from senior officials to Congress, therefore the American people, and the realization that Congress, specifically the Gang of Eight, wholly supported the lies that compelled me to act. Seeing someone in the position of James Clapper, Director of National Intelligence, baldly lying to the public without repercussions is evidence of a subverted democracy." President Obama defended his administration's domestic spy program during an interview at PBS Charles Rose show that aired Monday night. Obama drew a line between the administration's efforts and those of the Bush administration. He also claimed NSA surveillance is actually transparent because the requests are submitted to the top-secret Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. And he said, "It is transparent. That is why we set up the FISA court. Look at the whole point of my concern before I was president," because some people say, well, you know, Obama was this raving liberal before, and now he, you know, Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney sometimes says, yeah, you know, he took it all lock, stock, and barrel. My concern has always been not what we shouldn't do in intelligence gathering to prevent terrorism, but rather what we are setting up a system of checks and balances. China has issued its most direct response, yet reports a sweeping online surveillance by the United States. Foreign Ministry spokesperson made the comments on Monday. Hu Chongying said, "We believe the United States should pay attention to the international community's concerns and demands and give the international community the necessary explanation." NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden revealed last week the United States has been hacking computers targets in China and Hong Kong for years. And Apple has become the latest tech company to admit receiving a flood of requests for user data from U.S. law enforcement under the top-secret PRISM program, revealed by NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden. On Monday, Apple said during the 6-month period ending May, it received as many as 5,000 requests from the local, state, and federal agencies involving as many as 10,000 user accounts, Facebook and Microsoft, who have also admitted receiving thousands of requests for user data. Doesn't sound like 300 to me. Russia and the United States say they remain at odds over how to respond to the crisis in Syria. Following the talks on the edges of the G8 summit in Northern Ireland, Russian President Vladimir Putin has blasted the U.S. decision to arm anti-government rebels. He spoke alongside Obama Monday with a conflict that killed more than 90,000 people, and Putin said, "Of course, our opinions do not coincide, but all of us have the intention to stop the violence in Syria, to stop the growth of victims, and to solve the situation peacefully, including by bringing the parties to the negotiation table in Geneva." Obama, meanwhile, announced $300 million in U.S. humanitarian aid for Syrian and neighboring countries coping with refugees from the crisis, bringing the total amount aid to a lot of money. Speaking at G8 Summit, President Obama also announced that formal talks for a massive free trade deal between the United States and Europe will open next month in Washington. The deal could see tariffs and other trade barriers eliminated between the U.S. and 27 European countries. British Prime Minister David Cameron touted the Transatlantic Trade Investment Partnership as possible the biggest bilateral trade deal in history. Kind of sounds like trouble. Protests are continuing outside the G8 summit, with thousands gathering in voice of opposition to U.S. foreign policy, environmental devastation, and global austerity. Guardian reports Britain has spent $78 million in security for G8 for thousands of people on hand, but so far the protests have been peaceful and only 2 people have been arrested at the summit. Hundreds of thousands of demonstrators took to the streets in cities across Brazil Monday, marking the largest protest in decades. The wave of actions capped weeks of smaller protests that began in Sao Paulo following a hike in public transit fares. The uprising soon spiraled nationwide amid outrage over government corruption, inequality, failing public services, and police brutality against demonstrators. On Monday, roughly 100,000 people marched in Rio de Janeiro alone, while in the capital of Brasilia, some protesters stormed the Congress buildings and scaled its roof. Turkish news reports 87 people have been arrested in a series of raids targeting the suspects of participating in weeks of anti-government protest. Turkey's interior minister said 62 people have been arrested in Istanbul alone, with more arrests in the capital of Ankara. Police earlier detained roughly a dozen demonstrators who defied a government crackdown by remaining in Istanbul's Taksim Square that has been the center of protests challenging Turkish Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan. And NATO forces in Afghanistan handed leadership of security efforts to the country's Afghan forces during the ceremony in the capital, Kabul. The U.S.-led occupation will remain in Afghanistan until the end of next year, purportedly the more supportive role. On the same day the transition was announced, a suicide blast in Kabul killed at least 3 people. United Nations Children's Fund says the number of child casualties under the U.S.-led occupation of Afghanistan had sharply increased. During the first 4 months of this year, at least 414 children were hurt or killed, an increase of more than 25% from last year. International and Afghan forces were deemed at fault for 14% of those casualties. And U.S. and Yemeni demonstrators joined together outside the U.S. Embassy in Sana'a, Yemen, Monday to call for Obama to comply with his 5-year-old promise to close Guantanamo and transfer dozens of Yemenis and other prisoners back home. Former U.S. diplomat Colonel Ann Wright was among them. And she said, "I say the United States must close Guantanamo, clear the prisoners that have already no charges. The United States must release those prisoners. We must also stop our drone attacks in Yemen. There very dangerous. They kill innocent civilians, and there are better ways to deal with terrorism. More than 100 of the Guantanamo's 166 prisoners are on hunger strike. And a victory for voting rights, the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled states cannot require proof of citizenship from those seeking to vote in federal elections. 7-2 vote struck down an Arizona law requiring people to provide documentary proof of citizenship when filling out a federal registration form. Attorneys for the plaintiffs said tens of thousands of people in Arizona have been barred from voting by the requirements. I guess they don't need ID there. An Indiana woman who drew international support when she was sentenced to death at the age of 16 has been released after nearly 30 years in prison. Paula Cooper became the youngest person on death row in '86 after she convicted of killing Ruth Pelkey, an elderly Bible teacher. Her sentence was commuted to 60 years in '89. She is released early for good behavior and after earning a college degree behind bars. Washington Post has revealed the faces of more than 120 million people are being stored in massive state databases that are used by law enforcement to identify people deemed relevant to investigations. Databases were initially created to prevent driver's license fraud, but also contain photos of millions who have sought non-driver state IDs. More than half of the U.S. states allow federal and local law enforcement to comb through their request search for databases in order to identify suspects or even innocent bystanders by matching photos against images from surveillance footage or social media. The most commonly used facial recognition programs were honed in Iraq and Afghanistan to identify insurgents, but are now being used domestically for few legal restrictions. As the database grows larger and increasingly connecting across the jurisdictional boundaries, critics warn that authorities are developing the amounts of national identification system based on the distinct geography of each human face. House Republicans are expected to bring a bill banning abortions after 20 weeks of pregnancy to the floor. The measure, backed by Arizona Representative Trent Franks, would become the strictest anti-abortion bill in a decade to see a congressional vote. President Obama has vowed to veto the ban, calling it an assault on women's rights to choose. As the court-martial of U.S. Army whistleblower Bradley Manning entered its third week in Fort Meade, Maryland, a federal civilian court heard arguments Monday on whether the military should more quickly release records related to the trial. Media outlets have accused the government of interfering with their coverage by delaying or barring access to materials and heavily redacting those documents that are released. Democracy Now! Is a plaintiff in the case brought by the Center of Constitutional Rights along with the nation's WikiLeaks and The Guardian. Federal prosecutors are accusing the owners of more than a dozen 7-Eleven convenience store franchises of imposing a system of modern-day slavery against undocumented workers. U.S. authorities seized 14 stores in New York and Virginia, while dozens more remain under investigation. According to prosecutor Loretta Lynch, many of the workers targeted were from Pakistan and the Philippines. Loretta Lynch said the franchise owners that we have charged were engaged in a pattern of fraud and worker exploitation that involved stolen identities, false information submitted to their payroll provider, and systematic exploitation of the most illegal immigrant workforce that we sought out, and that they employed. Immigrant workers were routinely forced, upon threat of job loss or deportation, to work upwards of 100 hours a week to live on in houses the defendants owned, and were given small percentage of money they earned. 9 owners and managers were arrested Monday. Authorities also found 18 undocumented workers victimized in the alleged scheme who are now facing possible deportation. Director of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, has announced that he is resigning from the job to get a job in the financial sector. As head of ICE since 2009, John Morton presided over record deportations, including more than 400,000 in the last fiscal year alone. He will leave the agency next month to take a high-level job in Capital One. And that's it for the World News today. Now, another thanks to one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News.
Soundcheck Music Center, the Rock and Roll Connection. We have guitars, amps, drum equipment, sound accessories, lessons, and repairs. We are located at 671 Maltman Drive, Grass Valley. 530-272-7236, open 7 days a week.
fun, they don't even just pretend. John is an American. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't.
That's right, it's time for the police blotter and pictures in a blotter, not from these actual events, but used for visual aid only. These public records are obtained from daily logs issued from Nevada County Law Enforcement. Grass Valley Police Department on Monday, 8:40 a.m. A caller from Memorial Park reported someone shot the barbecue with pink paintballs. 11:23 a.m. A woman from 200 block of South Auburn Street reported her child's black mountain bike had been stolen over the weekend. And 12:18 p.m. a caller from 900 block of Golden Gate Terrace reported a man cut the fence to a storage facility. And 12:45 p.m. a caller from 200 block of Catherine Lane reported 5 to 10 transients living on a hospital property. Camp was located, but no one was there. And 2:04 p.m. a caller from 100 block of East Main Street reported transient issues and vandalism with someone cutting a city lot fence to access a building. And 2:13 p.m. a caller from 200 block of South Auburn Street reported 2 juveniles possibly drinking and urinating on a building. One was detained, the other ran away. No charges were desired. 7:28 p.m. a woman from 200 block of Dorsey Drive reported she had arsenic poisoning. Then she said she had a hard life and just needed to talk to someone. 8:40 p.m. a caller from Slate Creek and Ridge Roads reported several juveniles smoking pot and looking at the view. They could not be located. And 8:40 p.m. a woman from 600 block of Sentinel Way reported theft of a fanny pack. And 9:42 p.m. caller from Brighton Street and McCourtney Road reported a person lying on the ground who was advised of the camping ordinance. And 10:53 p.m. a caller from Central Avenue and Oak Street reported 2 vehicles possibly dealing drugs. No one was located. And Tuesday, 12:05 a.m. caller from 200 block of Jaworski Drive reported a man was drunken and put his hands on a girl's throat. Report was taken. In Nevada County Sheriff's Office on Monday, 8:52 a.m., a man reported possible theft of a front license plate. And 12:54 p.m., a caller from 11,000 block of Highway 49 reported a trenchant might be staying in a vacant house. The residence was secured. And 12:54 p.m., a caller from 11,000 block of Rough and Ready Highway reported 2 smoldering piles. And 12:55 p.m., a 9-year-old girl from 10,000 block of Lazy Valley Road reported being scared because no one was at the house and she thought they might have left her. Her father was located on the property. And 2:09 p.m., a caller from 12,000 block on McCourtney Road reported a person on the roof of a school. Issue was resolved with the suspect's parents. And 2:15 p.m., a man from 10,000 block of Quincy Lane reported identity theft causing $3,000 in debt. And 3:02 p.m., a caller from 12,000 block of Pascali Road reported a neighbor was violating a court order and trespassing. And 3:54 p.m., a caller from 17,000 block of Lightfoot Way reported an email scam causing a virus and hacking, which the company then tries to charge $300 to fix. And 4:38 p.m., a man from 10,000 block of Melody Road reported a black Maverick shotgun might have fallen off the top of his Jeep. Now is missing. 5:01 p.m., a caller from Arizona reported a possible crime ring in Nevada County. And 5:09 p.m., a caller from 10,000 block of Pine Hill Drive reported possible residential burglary. And 5:16 p.m., a man from 13,000 block of Noel Lane reported a mountain lion under his vehicle. There were no fish and wildlife wardens available. And 6:04 p.m., a man from 12,000 block of Summit Ridge Drive reported missing a .45 pistol. And 6:50 p.m., a caller from 10,000 block of Broken Oak Court reported a physical fight involving a man and a woman with a baseball bat who was threatening to kill the man because he struck her in front of the children. The caller then said the woman appeared to be defending herself after the man struck her. He was arrested on suspicion of battery on a spouse and damaging a phone. At 9:24 p.m., a caller from 16,000 block of Shady Forest Lane reported an out-of-control burn pile. At 10:45 p.m., a woman from 18,000 block of Lake Forest Drive reported a man stealing things and threatening her and punching holes in the wall. On Tuesday, 12:26 a.m., a woman from 14,000 block of Rough and Ready Highway reported hearing someone kicked in a gate, then heard noises from a storage shed. At 2:45 a.m., a caller from 17,000 block of Oak Hollow Circle reported a traffic collision with all the occupants being intoxicated. A man's head had gone through into the windshield and was unconscious. A person was transported to Sutter Roseville Medical Center. Another was taken to Sierra Nevada Memorial Hospital. No further information was available. At 4:09 a.m., a man from 16,000 block of Easy Street reported someone moved his garbage cans. At 4:16 a.m., a caller from 13,000 block of Lake Wildwood Drive reported a belligerent drunken person in the backyard of a residence. At 7 a.m., a caller from 11,000 block at Cement Hill Road reported a mailbox had been knocked off its stand. At Nevada City Police Department on Monday, 9:02 a.m., a caller from Broad and Union Streets reported a theft. At 10:16 a.m., a caller from Broad and Sacramento Streets reported a woman crying and screaming and chasing a man down the street. It was a verbal argument. At 10:43 p.m., a caller from North Pine Street reported people howling and yelling. And that's it for the blotter today. Now another thanks to one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News. I'm going to go get my garlic. Christopher's Old World Deli and Catering Company has brought its delicious food and service downtown Grass Valley. Like desserts? They got 'em. You like international style lunches? They got 'em. Christopher's Deli and Catering for parties, get-togethers, weddings, or whatever. Open 7 days a week. In today's local news headlines, defense attorneys in fraud case file motion to dismiss charges. Defense counsel for Gold Country Lenders CEO Philip Lester and CFO Susan Lafert filed a 106-page motion Friday to dismiss the criminal indictment against the pair. Lafert and Lester were indicted by a criminal grand jury for allegedly defrauding investors of millions of dollars over a period of 8 years. They face 61 counts of elder abuse, securities fraud, and conspiracy. The complex fraud case has been contentious from the get-go, with accusations being aired by Lafert's attorney Greg Klein and Lester's attorney Ken Tribby, of the countercharges being leveled by California Deputy Attorney General Maggie Krell. Nevada County Superior Court Judge Candace Heidelberger has on several occasions requested better communication and cooperation among the parties. At the last hearing on May 22nd, Heidelberger said she was unwilling to postpone the jury trial that had been delayed several times any further than its current date of September 17th. The motion filed in Nevada County Superior Court by Klein and Tribby argues that all 61 counts of indictment could be dismissed because Krell failed to offer a significant, if not staggering, amount of exculpatory evidence in this case, evidence that could prove that Lester and Lafert were innocent of charges against them. The prosecutor only told her side of the story, which did not fulfill her duty. The motion reads. Motion alleges that Krell played the jurors' sympathies for investors who allegedly lost their life savings but failed to disclose copious amounts of exculpatory information, including more than $20 million paid to investors over the same period of time they were allegedly defrauding them. According to the motions, Krell told the grand jury it didn't matter if the investors were careless with their money or if they had their heads in the sand. In fact, the law does impose a responsibility on investors who signed but failed to read their contracts, the motion reads. The motion by Tribby and Klein details at great length the type of evidence that could have been presented to buttress the client's innocence. For one, Krell failed to offer evidence that the massive economic meltdown was the actual cause of the claimant's monetary loss, the motion states. The motion also alleges that Krell failed to offer documents that prove the proper disclosures were made and therefore was no fraud. Despite the fact that Krell argued that the defendants defrauded their investors because nothing was done to develop properties involved, she fails to disclose numerous maps, plans, and studies that prove the defendants were in fact working to develop these properties, the motion reads. Krell allegedly also failed to offer evidence that the state statute of limitations had expired on at least 50 of the counts. It is a grand jury's job to weigh all the evidence, the motion states. However, in this case, the prosecution did this job for the jury. She decided that it was relevant and what was relevant and what was not. She decided what evidence fit her theory in the case and what evidence she did not need to offer because she could explain it away. She decided what evidence was credible and allowed her witnesses to contradict the documentary evidence that she possessed and failed to offer indictments that are the result of that kind of failures the prosecutor committed in this case should be dismissed. The motion also argues the fact that the grand jury was convened in Sacramento rather than in Nevada County, violating the defendant's right to have their case heard by a jury of their peers. Krell must file her response to the motion by June 21st, and hearing was set for June 25th. We'll keep you posted. That's it for local news today. We would like to thank Amy Goodman, Reuters, Associated Press, Ubinet, Sierra Foothills Report, The Union, local law enforcement, and others for the sourcing of our news, and you for watching. Remember, we are the only visual video news media in Nevada County, and we are free for you to watch 7 days a week. If you have local stories and would like to have them aired on our news, please email us with a limit the story to 750 words, and if you have pictures, please include them in the email to grassvalleytelevision@gmail.com. Please include some type of contact information for verification of facts. You can watch this broadcast on Comcast Cable, NCTV, Channel 11 in Nevada County, 8 a.m., 3 p.m., 7:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, 10:30 a.m., Saturday, and 8 p.m. Sunday, and Suddenlink Channel 16 in Truckee and Alta same times. We also are streamed on the internet, NCTV's Digital Media Center website at nevadacountytv.org and our website, gvtv.org. And don't forget Grass Valley Television that plays 24/7 on the net, grassvalleytelevision.com. We post to Facebook, YouTube, blip.tv, and many other sites, and have RSS feed and video podcast on iTunes. Just search under video podcast for GVTV News. Grass Valley Television also videotapes local events around Nevada County. If you have a need for video, you can contact us for more info at grassvalleytelevision@gmail.com or 530-362-8889.
When your time comes, don't postpone it. When others down and out, you don't condone it. Truth be told.